Hi everybody, this is Shane R. Monroe. What do these three discs have in common? Stick around and let's find out. If you've never heard of the CD+G format, you would not be alone. In the late 80s, early 90s, this format came out to be sort of a multimedia enhancement for a music CD. This wasn't the first attempt, of course, to do this. There were many other attempts to do it as well. But CD+G ended up finding its home in a very niche market, well, maybe not so niche, called karaoke. And CD+G, if you're using any sort of karaoke system today, you're probably using MP3+G files. Those files were ripped directly from one of these discs, or they were authored that way originally. CD+G was the format's successor to Pioneer Laserdisc, something we're going to cover greatly on this channel in the future. But for now, understand that CD+G is a standard audio disc, which is why not only do I have a karaoke rendition of Frank Sinatra's greatest hits on a karaoke CD+G, I also have pop groups like Information Society and Laura Branigan. Oddly enough, you may actually own CDs somewhere in your personal collection that are CD+G compatible. Now, as you can see, Laura Branigan here proudly shows off a sticker right on the front proclaiming it is CD+G, which according to the sticker, this compact disc contains full CD sound plus graphics. The graphics on this disc can only be displayed after a CD graphics adapter or a new CD graphics player is connected to your audio system. Graphics from this disc may be then displayed on any TV set or monitor. So but in some cases you could look at the disc, like this Information Society disc, you could look all over this disc on the inside, everywhere, and I don't think you'll find, oh, here you go, you'll find a single tiny logo showing you that it's a CD+G disc. So unless you sort of knew what you were looking for, or you were a collector of these things, which I was for a short period of time, you may not realize that this was a CD+G, and you would happily play this in whatever audio player that you happen to have and never realize you're missing a whole nother piece of this disc. It's absolutely crazy. Of course, you expect CD+G from a karaoke disc. And on the back it says, for on-screen lyrics, simply connect your CD+G player to your TV set just as you would a VCR. Compatible with all CD+G graphic players and with the Atari Jaguar, JVC XI, Sega CDX, and 3DO players. Any of you got any of those? I don't have any of those. So what I do have though today to help me demonstrate these guys is the venerable Amiga CD32, one of my favorite consoles of all time, to help us explore these discs. So we're going to look over these discs and see what they look like and what level of graphics could we actually be talking about. And then at the end, we're going to do a little more of a technical overview of what CD+G is and how it works, because I think it's personally fascinating from a technology point of view, as well as being, well, really, really cool for what they are, which is an audio CD that happens to have some graphics shoved into an unknown portion or a lesser known portion of the disc. Now, it's also important to know that not every console that plays a CD will actually play a CD+G. It requires special decoding, and it often requires a special drive. So even if you have a CD-ROM drive on your computer still, or on one of your old computers, it may still not be able to play one of these because it uses a particular area of the disc that's not readable by all drives. So I know what you're saying. Enough of this nonsense. Let's get on with the fun. Now understand, any one of these discs is going to get a copyright hit on this video. So we're going to have to be discreet, and I will show you what it looks like, and you'll have to sort of maybe mouth the words as you go along. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure my volume is turned down here. I think if it's in quietly, maybe I won't get a copyright hit. I may have to go back in and clean this up. All right, but without further ado, let's go ahead and see what these guys look like. I mean, after all, that's why I've got this whole thing set up, right? So you've probably seen karaoke CDs being played, even if they were ripped and stored on some guy's laptop. I'm going to drop this guy in, and I have the very awesome Batarang CD32 remote, and it's going to pick the disc up. And again, I'm going to keep that volume way down there. Hopefully no copyright hits. And this is the awesome CD32 audio CD playback UI, and I love it. I always thought this was like cool and stylish. But this is not CD+G, this is the Amiga CD32. I'm going to go ahead and play that first track. And you can see the interface goes away and it's replaced by, well, now that might look familiar to you if you're a big karaoke fan. And this is the first song on here. And the song plays without lyrics, well, vocals. The lyrics are displayed on the screen in time to the song. So if you go look up YouTube karaoke, you will probably find a ton of videos that look just like this. And these have all been ripped by, and from, I should say, a CD+G disc. So a lot of people owe a lot of their karaoke collection to people buying and ripping these discs, which of course, they were very expensive at the time. I don't remember how much I paid for this one, but it was a lot. So there's a utilitarian purpose to using CD+G, which is absolutely perfect for this. Because you don't need a whole lot of graphic fidelity, you need words on the screen, and you need to be able to time them with the music, which is a perfect use for CD+G, although I don't think it was originally planned that that would be the usage for the format. Instead, let's take a look at Information Society. So Information Society, actually, you know some of their songs, I'm sure. Some of you do anyway. This is actually the big cut from this album. And again, I'm going to keep the audio purposefully low. But you can see here that they have extended the concept of CD+G, and they're actually using rudimentary 8-bit graphics along with the concept of being able to use a highlighting system for lyrics. Now, the usage depended, of course, disc per disc, what they decided they wanted to put on it. In some cases, they would use graphics like this. They would use lyrics, but no graphics. Sometimes they would mix the two. And you can tell that there's no real animation going on here. All it can really do is redraw portions of the screen at certain times at a certain speed. Again, perfect for karaoke, but not so much for what you would consider like a true multimedia experience, right? So this is kind of cool. There's a huge long intro on this one. I should have probably picked a different song. I guess I could skip to something else. But each song has some sort of video accompaniment to it, even if it happens to be something of the 8-bit variety. Some of them are actually very creative. You can actually take a fully digitized picture. I think the Laura Branigan one has that, or the Fleetwood Mac one, which I don't have handy right now. One of them uses actual digitized graphics in 8-bit format, and it looks pretty good. So you can see this is a low-tech first shot at a multimedia disc. But what really makes this great is these worked anywhere. These would work as standard audio discs in your car. They would work at your home. Wherever you had a CD player, these would work fine. But if you happen to have something else a little more powerful, they would provide you with an additional source of entertainment or visual entertainment. So let's take a look at Laura Branigan here. How many were there? Not a lot. There weren't a lot of these CDs. I think, I'm trying to remember, Little Feat had one. Elvis Costello, I believe, had one. Who was that other guy? There was another group that had a couple of them as well. Let's go ahead and start Laura Branigan here. And again, so they became very creative with how they could use these, not just simply lyrics like the CD+G karaoke, but they actually came up with a way of at least doing some sort of a visual presentation. Yeah, there you go. See, that looks pretty good. I mean, it doesn't move around a lot, of course, and it's basic. But how cool is that? I mean, to think that maybe you have some CDs laying around in your collection that might have this capability and you never knew about it. So there's not much else to show and tell. These were really cool, and I've got a handful of them kicking around here. You can still get them, but you almost really have to know what you're looking for because a lot of people are selling these discs that have no idea that they're CD+G. Unless, of course, they're karaoke, or they have big CD+Gs on the cover of them, like Laura Branigan here. But for the most part, you should probably go find a list, and I'll share that with you in the link below, as to what discs may have CD+G capabilities, and then of course it's up to you to try to find something to play them on. But let's take a look at the technical piece, shall we? Because I think it's interesting how it always amazes me how people come up with ideas like this, and how somebody thought we could use this weird portion of the disc to store graphics. So let's take a look at that next. We start with a visit to the CD+G Museum. It's an older website, but it does have a list of all of the individual titles that were released. And there's about 50 in here, and a lot of these look like they might be sort of sales pitch albums. There's some Mozart, so there's some royalty-free stuff in here. This probably falls into that category too, Beethoven. But you will see a lot of interesting bands and groups from the day, such as Information Society, Jimi Hendrix, Emmylou Harris, Fleetwood Mac, which is a great album, by the way, Behind the Mask. Devo had one, Laura Branigan, as you saw earlier, Anita Baker, Little Feat, Chris Isaak, that was the one I couldn't remember earlier. Little Feat had a couple of them, 10,000 Maniacs, Talking Heads, Donna Summer, Simply Red, Lou Reed, Bonnie Raitt. So it's not like, oh, and Prince, of course. It's not like they didn't exist anywhere, but honestly, it's it's one of those things where there's just not a ton of them. And the CD+G Museum does have a YouTube channel, which apparently has a bunch of videos that you can look at that either they don't care about getting copyrighted hits or whatever, but you can take a look at them there. To understand, though, what CD+G really is, it was a proprietary format from Philips, and this guy worked, Jim Bumgardner, worked with Time Warner Interactive, and they were an early producer of discs for CD+G. And as an employee, he had access to all of this stuff, including CD+G. $30,000 was the licensing fee if you wanted to make CD+G. It's now been lowered down to $100. So I guess that was to help support the CD+G karaoke market. But you did need a special karaoke player to use them, or something that would play that format using the Red Book format as a reference. This guy wrote some Macintosh software that would allow you to play it on certain drives. But if you wanted to do that now on a PC, there's a lot of devices that won't necessarily play them. But to understand exactly what it was capable of, I thought this was a pretty good article for us to look at. So as we talked about before, the disc can be played on regular audio players, but it can output a graphic signal as well. It uses something called the subchannel data, which is normally used by the CD player to help control the disc. So this was an area that they reserved for some particular use of controlling a player or playback, but it sat there empty for regular music discs, apparently. So in most cases, on a typical CD player, you cannot access the subchannel information. It's never sent to the computer. Most CD-ROM players, you couldn't read the content area at all. I remember in early karaoke days, there were people that were putting up lists of compatible CD-ROM drives that you could get, special firmware that you had to flash in order to make it work right. Some manufacturers have recently started producing drives that allow the computer to access data, but this is 1995. The need for reading that subchannel data is largely gone now, and a lot of players that you might have currently probably won't read them at all. So it is interesting to look at exactly how much area was available, and I think, let's see, where was that? Let's see. So assuming the disk is being read at normal speed, approximately 150 kilobytes per second, for audio playback, the data is read at 75 sectors per second, so 75 sectors. Each sector, there are 2,352 bytes of content data, 96 bytes of subchannel data. That's like half a tweet. So not a whole lot of data, but you got 75 of those per second. And that starts adding up to being a fairly significant amount of information that you could store this data. And we could sit here and dig through here, but 6 bits per byte, 16 bytes per packet, 4 packets per sector, 75 sectors per second, or 28,800 bits per second, or 3.6K per second. Not a lot. Not a lot at all. A typical 160 by 120 QuickTime movie used 90K per second. So that's still pretty underpowered by any standard of the definition of multimedia. So let's take a look at this. 16 color graphics are displayed on a raster field, which is 300 by 216 pixels in size. The middle display area is within the TV safe area, which allows the graphics to be displayed. The outer border is set to a solid color. 16 color entry lookup table of 4,096 colors to choose from. 16-bit color table. Each pixel can be stored in 4 bits, resulting in a total bitmap size of just under 32K, which is still remarkably small. So we can continue to sit here and delve into the technical details of this thing, but suffice to say that somebody found some area of a CD, a standard audio CD, that left some room to shove some extra stuff that could be interpreted as graphics. It's crazy to me how people come up with nutty stuff like this. But CD+G was probably, karaoke is what really saved CD+G, right? Sunfly, and there's a whole bunch of these. Sunfly is a big one. Sunfly Karaoke is still around, but they are now catering, of course, to digital apps, apps on your laptop or your computer to do karaoke. If you want a karaoke track, it's usually an MP4 video format now. Although if you do browse around long enough on here, you will find a, let's see if I can find one that's older. No, that's pretty old too. Most of these are MP4 only, but if we were to go into, say, I don't know, Christmas music, and let's look at Little Drummer Boy here. Right, this is available on CD+G or as an HD video file. So you could experiment and see what these look like. Oh, we don't want any audio here. Let's knock that off. So you could see this is in slightly higher resolution in terms of what this was possible to do with CD+G. Didn't I say no audio? All right, so again, it's available for $2. CD+G is tiny, right? So this will be an MP3 with a small graphics file with it, and you could reburn this back to a CD+G disc, should you want to, if you had the right software, of course. Well, I hope you enjoyed looking at CD+G. I think it's a fascinating format. It didn't really take off other than in karaoke. It didn't have the mainstream appeal that I think was immediately sucked in by multimedia CD-ROM titles and things of that nature. But I think it's interesting that these things are still around, and the fact that you might still have one of these sitting in your personal collection somewhere, it blows me away that these things are probably sitting on the shelves of Goodwills and Salvation Army thrift stores, and people, they could be sitting there right now and nobody really knows what they are, and quite honestly, probably nobody cares. But for those of us who lived through the era, these bring back some fun memories. I'm Shane R. Monroe. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, click the little bell, and you'll be notified of future videos. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.